Good evening. It's about 6:30, so when you started, be mindful of your time and the panelist time. So there are panelists who are giving us their time freely tonight, so we'll get started. Just a couple quick introductions. My name is John Serafine, and I'm the Director of Counseling here at McQuaid. And I'm joined tonight by my college counselor colleague, Jeff Griffin, who's playing a dual role as cameraman and college counselor tonight. And Anne-Marie Leto, who's over here. Anne-Marie runs our College Advisement Center and also has had a pretty big role in your son's college application process and all the logistics of applying and searching and all that good stuff. So thank you for coming tonight. I'm going to let the panelists introduce themselves in a brief moment. But let me just kind of go over what the premise is tonight, what the goal is, and what I hope you get out of tonight's program. This is also being recorded, or as you can imagine, in the middle of May, there's everything from baseball games to you name it. So this is going to be recorded on our website also for those who couldn't be here tonight. But the premise is pretty simple. I'm always intrigued by the topic of the transition from high school to college. I was telling these guys earlier, you know, whether you go 2 miles down the road and go to Nazareth or Fisher, or if you go cross country, no matter what happens, it's a pretty significant change in your world when you go off to college. It just is. I mean, there's so many things academically, socially, and the place that you've gone to for X number of years with the same people and the familiar surroundings, it changes. It just does. And the scary part, I always think at least, is that a lot of it is out of your control. Like your level of happiness at a college campus, some of it's in your control, but so much of it is out of your control. You know, and we as counselors and educators here, and you as parents and kids, I think we do a pretty good job, with the search and educating people about the process. But, kids then they get off to the college that they've ultimately chosen, and it's a little bit of a crapshoot, right? You get a bad roommate, you get a couple bad professors, you live on a bad hall, something like COVID happens to wander around, and it just kind of throws you a little bit, right? But that transition from high school to college, some of it is cyclical, some of it's fairly predictable, but a lot of it's not, right? And I think it's really, really important, not only as seniors getting ready to graduate, but also as parents of seniors getting ready to graduate, to just kind of wrap your head around what are some of the things that are coming up. We just sat down with these guys for a few minutes and talked, and I basically said to them, I don't want this to be scripted at all. I didn't give them any outline that we're going to follow tonight. I didn't give them an agenda. I simply said, I want you to talk about your transition from high school to college, and I want you to talk about your first year experience post-McQuaid. And the only thing I asked them to do is be brutally honest. I'm going to ask them some questions. Some will be generic, some will be a little bit deeper. But again, I just want them to be very, very honest in their answers. I also want this to be interactive. I want you to feel free to ask questions of any of them. Patty Doors up here is representing a parent. I've had 4 kids of my own go through college. I lived to tell those stories. So that's basically the purpose of the evening. There's 2 handouts that you have. One's this green booklet that has a variety of stuff in here. Everything from how to take advantage of your orientation program, to how to do laundry, to how to use a credit card, how to deal with stress, etc. And then this little diploma-looking thing is basically a packing list. Things that we think you should be packed when your son heads off to college in a few short weeks. So, let me introduce these folks here. So if you guys would just start here with RJ and just introduce yourself, tell us your name, your college, and maybe a major or something that you do on campus.
RJ Kinsella here, go to Boston College, and I'm in a finance major. Jude Amon, I spent my first semester at Fordham University as a business major.
I'm Caleb Wong, I go to Yale University. I'm a cognitive science major, I'm a pre-med track, and I play club volleyball.
My name is Ryan Weston. I attend Penn State University, their main campus, and I study mechanical engineering.
Hi, my name is Chris Capazzi. I go to Providence College, and I am a marketing major.
I'm Patty Dorr, and I went to the University of Dayton, 89. And we have 4 children, all 3 boys went to McQuaid, our daughter went to Mercy, and we can tell you more later about where they went. Feel free to ask me any questions.
Ryan, I'm going to start with you, hope you don't mind, just to pick on you. tell us, like, what was the thing that surprised you the most? You know, here you are, your first year's ended, you're back home. What would you say is the one thing that you were most surprised about during your freshman year of college? What were you not aware of?
Probably just how big of a change it was. You know, you live at home for 18 years, you go to middle school, high school, but once you make that transition to college, you're pretty much like on your own. Like you make your own decisions, you live in a different place, whole new environment, new people, new faces. Probably just, you know, that big transition, I would say.
Well, what do you wish someone, last year in May of your senior year, what do you wish I had told you or someone would have told you that you didn't tell them?
I would say probably, you know, focus more on academics. You know, it's you're in a dorm room, you're in a dorm where, you know, all your friends and whatnot living right there. It can be kind of a distraction. I'd say more time just spending on academics.
Kid, how about you? Can you answer that same question? Anything you were surprised with?
I think, like Ryan touched a lot about it, how you kind of just get thrown into this new environment and you are on your own, but obviously, you know, you still have your family there to support you and people and resources all around you. So yeah, definitely just like what surprised me most was just how much I could do for myself at this point. Waking up, you know, on time to go to class, making sure I eat 3 meals a day or 2 meals, however much could get me through. I guess making an effort to like see friends or do more than just you know, study or go out or like try to like build a well-rounded schedule. So.
Well, one of the things at least I always talk to the kids about, I think Jeff does too, is that, you know, part of the difference between high school and college is the amount of free time you have. You know, so I tell kids, you know, when you're in high school, essentially you're in a classroom, or at least you're supposed to be in a classroom, when you're from 7-ish to 2:30 a day, or 7:30 to 2:30, you're basically in class about 35 hours a week. You know, and they're used to that. That's been their life for the last 12 years, essentially. And then you go off to college, and maybe you're in classes 13, 14, 15 hours a week. You know, and you know, I always think the kids who are ultra successful in college, they're the ones who are able to use those additional 20 hours, you know, to their advantage. And the kids who don't, those tend to be the kids who struggle a little bit. All right, so somebody walk me through, walk me through, like, in the fall, what was your typical day like, class-wise at Fordham? Take me through a Tuesday. What was a Tuesday like at Fordham for you?
My Tuesday, I think I had 3 classes, so they were all spaced out throughout the day. So you get a lot of these weird periods where it's like an hour and 15 minutes before your next class and after your class is finished. So like to your point about structuring time, like that definitely comes in, like being able to look at that time and be like, okay, I'm gonna like study for 30 minutes and then go get food before my next class. Like kind of knowing what you need to get done is really important because that time really does just slip away if you let it. And then you're gonna have a lot to do in very little time.
Any night classes or Saturday classes, is that a thing now?
I had a class at 8 p.m., it was philosophy. It was a great class to take at 8 p.m. I really enjoyed it. You get a different crowd of people at that time of night is what I've found, like, and different professors. I mean, my professor was a lot younger, just probably because he had a day job or something. I mean, something to do, so. I really liked my night class. It was a nice change, you know. It's like kind of an advantage of college. Like some people do learn better at night. I definitely learned better like super early in the morning, so I didn't do very well in that class, but it was enjoyable.
What about you know, roommate situations? Let's talk about that for a second. I'm always shocked. I asked all the kids in my college planning seminars this year, my juniors. I said, raise your hand if you share a room right now with a sibling. No one. Not one person raised their hand. Then I said, let's talk about dorm life next year. I said, you know, in a short amount of time, you're going to be living. Basically, I say, cut your current bedroom in half put another sweaty human being in there and welcome to college dorm life. That's basically what it is. Somebody talk, did you have a roommate situation, or did you have a roommate? Just talk a little bit about where's your roommate from, did you guys get along, did you have any problems with your roommate? Did his girlfriend move in for a month?
No, so I mean, my roommate actually was like pretty, I'm gonna be honest, was pretty good. Like, he was super chill, like, we didn't have any arguments or anything.
Super chill, that was pretty good.
Yeah. I kind of met him, like, I went early decision to Boston College, and I met him like a couple weeks after, talked to him like online, met up with him actually in like, I think it was February of the year before I went in, obviously, and we just like hit it off pretty well. And we had a couple of interests like fishing, like he wrestled, so he's pretty athletic as well. So we both had that like going for us, and we both wanted finance as our majors. So, but other than that, we didn't really have any arguments. But I mean, it's a lot of stuff where like he wanted the room with his girlfriend that did come over. So you gotta give him that, and then you just go like study in the common room. So you gotta just give and take at times.
Chris, how about you? Any roommate?
Yeah, so I had 2 roommates. I lived in a triple, and especially as an only child, living with not one but 2 other people was a massive adjustment for me. Just now knowing how now that we have to compromise, we have to share, like getting up, like so I had the earliest classes, so I always was the one who got up earliest in the morning. So now I actually have to do this as quietly as possible, so not to wake up my other roommates. So like learning how to do stuff like that and having to compromise between things, that's definitely an issue. That's something that I think it's doable. Also, my roommates were actually quite the opposite. There was one roommate who was never in the room. The other roommate was always in the room. He brought his Xbox, so he was pretty much on his Xbox playing with his friends the whole time. So while there can be issues that come up, it's just, I would say just communicate. Like when you see something or like when there's something that's bothering you, just talk about it and don't let it sit, because if you just let it sit and don't do anything, it's just going to get worse. So like as soon as you see something, you should say something before the problem just balloons and gets worse.
How'd you guys find your roommates? Did you find them on
It was-
Facebook?
I was random.
All
It was
random? Anybody
completely
have
random.
any say in your roommate? Anybody here, is it all random?
I mean, I picked, yeah.
Go ahead.
Yeah, I picked, it was through the Facebook, like group, I think. Yeah, like people like upload their profile and everything, and just, I went from there.
I just wanted to add, so with 4 kids, the oldest going to Dayton, our daughter going to Manhattan College, our son Joe, Holy Cross, and our son James, Purdue last year. We've had pretty much every kind of situation for roommates, and I'll speak just about James. He was in a forced triple. I don't know if you were chosen to be in a triple, but this is a forced triple, which you may have heard about. They just overbook, basically, the school freshman class, and so everything is just, you can endure anything for 9 or 10 months, right? But it's really hard when you don't have a closet, or you're climbing up to get to the loft to move things. So that's really small things. The big things are the situations maybe that you spoke of. And one situation that you might encounter is someone being on their double computer monitors until 2 or 3 in the morning and playing games, and that's really difficult because you can sleep with like a little blindfold, but it's really hard night after night. So our son did look into requesting an option after Christmas, and something had opened up in housing, and he was able to move into a campus apartment which had a kitchen. With very little trouble, he moved over there, and there was a vacancy because another student had gone abroad. So it really wasn't a big deal, and it wasn't a bad thing either way. So there are options, and he looked into it himself, and as a parent, you just kind of stay out of it. And I always encourage my kids to look into those situations and try to figure out a solution. Instead of meddling with it, it's hard. But there are those Facebook groups, which I do think are helpful before you go, for parents and for students. So that's something you guys can look into for the school you're going to.
One of the things I'm always concerned with, I don't know if this is just me, but oftentimes kids like to go off to college in a room with someone from their high school or someone from their friend group. And I think that's a nice safety net early on when you get to a new place and your roommate's a familiar person. But it's hard to live with people. It's hard to live with someone. And oftentimes, that sounds great for a couple weeks or maybe a month or two, and then all of a sudden, two people who are the best friends, all of a sudden you're not the best friends. It just doesn't work. So it's just something to be mindful of. Also, sometimes it works for people too. But I think for the most part, it feels good early on, and then sometimes it doesn't. All right? How about your friend group? Like, where did you meet your friend group? I think a lot of times kids go off to school and it's like, I don't know anyone. How am I going to find my friends? McQuaid, I have my little group of friends that I've been with for X number of years. I go off to school. Where am I going to find those people who are going to hang out with me? Can you guys talk about that? Where did that happen?
So at Penn State, our dorms are separated into different categories of places. So there's East Halls, North Halls, West Halls, South Halls, and Pollock Halls. East Halls is all freshmen, which is really cool. It's a great way to meet people. So on our floor was kind of small. There was probably roughly 30 people on our floor, and probably half of us, or 3/4 of us, kind of all became friends. So we kind of all did stuff with each other. Our dorm happened to be unrenovated, while most of the other East dorms were renovated. And so in the renovated dorms, you had to have, when you left your dorm room, you had to have a key every time just to walk into your room, while for unrenovated, people just walked into your rooms and stuff, and it was a much more relaxed environment. And so each night we'd have 6, 7 kids in one room, or 3 or 4 in another, and it was just a great time, and we sort of all became friends that way throughout the year. And we also did things not club, but IM League is called, so intramural sports. And our floor would do things like softball, flag football, but it was kind of a great time being an all freshman area, as it was a great way to meet people.
Anybody else want to tackle that one?
Yeah, I can add to that as well. I think you definitely have your friends who you kind of meet the first couple of days. I'm still really good friends with my roommates, but not a single one of my, I had 4 roommates, not a single one of them was similar to any of my friends at McQuaid. I had this really, great group of friends here, and then I go off to college, and you meet all these different types of people, and be open to meeting these different types of people, and introducing yourself to kind of everybody you meet, because no one at college knows more than maybe 5 kids there, so just being as open to saying hi and introducing yourself. And one place where you do meet a lot of people are your classes. You spend a good amount of time there, especially if it's a small setting class like a seminar, or even a big lecture class. You're going to sit next to someone, introduce yourself, and you never know who you might meet. Another place where a lot of people meet their friends, I think, is their clubs they join. I'm in club volleyball, so I've definitely met a bunch of my friends through that, as well as upperclassmen who can then introduce you to other people, and it kind of just opens your social sphere a lot by finding the people that are more similar to you in these different clubs that you're interested in, or wherever that might take you.
Patty, can you, I know what my fears were as a parent with my kids going off to school. Can you talk what goes through your head as your son or your daughter heads off to college? And I'll share my concerns. I bet they're probably fairly similar.
Okay, wow, a lot. So our oldest is 27 and our youngest is 18. So 3 are out of college. None have gone on to graduate school yet. Gosh, the things that go through your mind, did I tell them enough how to be safe on campus? You hear these things, it's a real thing, we all know those stories. I guess I'm a big communicator, so we definitely have a family group chat, which your moms will love if you reply to her. So I encourage all of that. I guess you have to let your kids figure things out for themselves, and you have to rely on yourselves and to the kids here, the young people here. You have to figure out your class schedule. Certainly it's great to run things by your parents, but it's really time now to jump in and discern for yourselves whether it's staying at a school even, or what kind of major you want to continue on in or jump into. You really have to figure it out for yourselves. And I think the best thing that we did was, be a little hands off with some of that, but be there for your kids. So just keep in touch, talk as much as you can, but don't bombard them with question after question. That's my advice. Try to go visit and have a connection with them and their new friends. I think it's always fun to go for a weekend or a parent weekend. I really strongly encourage you to do that, especially if your kids, even if they do a club sport. We had, so far, 2 of our kids have done club rugby, and we just went to see our oldest son play, and James jumped into that team as a guest, so that was really fun. And then we had 2 of our kids played a D1 sport, so that's always been really fun, and that's also a great way for them to have a group of friends almost immediately. It's not their entire group of friends, but it's a really great way to start. So intramural sports or club sports, strongly encourage. You have lots of time, like John was saying, you do have time in your day, more than you did as a high school student, believe it or not, but use your time wisely and just get involved in things. That's my advice.
I was always worried as a parent about safety issues. I don't know if it's because I was in education my whole life, but there's no shortage of horror stories that with safety issues on a college campus. I mean, it's happened ad nauseum around here, right? U of R, RIT, Nazareth. There's no shortage of really sad stories of things that have happened to kids. So that was a big concern of mine. I always wanted to be sure they were safe. And some of my kids went to small towns, some of the larger cities, and that was an issue that I was concerned with. And the other one was the drug and alcohol situation on campus. What was that going to look like? How are they going to be in that environment? So let's just talk about that for a minute. Let's talk about safety. Let's talk about drug and alcohol situations. RJ, if I show up at Boston College on some Saturday night at like midnight, where might I find you? Library's closed.
Yeah, maybe like a house party, maybe.
What's a house party?
So, like, essentially, juniors at BC, it's like the typical thing to get a house there. So they invite like their friends of friends, whoever's really welcome.
You can't drink there, right? Because you're underage.
No, I mean, if I'm gonna be honest, you can. Yeah, I mean, it's no secret. Like there's alcohol, there are drugs there. It's just like it's your decision at the end of the day, and you gotta be like true to yourself and say no when you don't want to, and so.
Gee, where would I find you Friday night at midnight in Fort?
I'd either be asleep or I'd be at a bar.
Not a sleep at a bar.
No, I never progressed that far, no. Yeah, so Fordham doesn't have any frats, so it was mostly a bar scene. It's in the Bronx, so like going back to the safety thing, you always kind of travel in groups. I mean, it's like a tall white male, I had less of a problem with that than like a woman would going around at night, so like that's something to be aware of too. Like, don't let your girlfriends just like leave. I mean, they won't, but like if they're like, you should go with someone, like that's why. It's because they live in a different world.
Were you in the city a lot, or were you on campus most of the time?
No, I went in the city. I traveled the Bronx a fair amount. I mean, there's just so much to do in the city. I went to a lot of concerts and MoMA, the Met. There was this really nice botanical garden right next to Fordham that you could walk to. It was really great. towards the end of my time there, I was going there every day. It's a great place to walk and just kind of get away from the noise of the city.
Anybody, did you ever feel unsafe, any of you guys, on campus or off campus? Anybody?
Yes.
Yeah?
Yeah, I totally felt unsafe. I mean, if you think you're not going to be put in a situation where you feel unsafe, you're kidding yourself. You will be put in uncomfortable situations.
I'd like to add something to, since our daughter was in the Bronx, she would often ride the subway, but always in groups, and it's very important, since we're speaking to mainly guys, young men here, I would strongly encourage you to always keep your eyes peeled for your friends, your girls that are your friends, and especially if she's been drinking, you know, it would be really wonderful if you guys keep an eye out for those situations to make sure if you see a girl's, you know, walking by herself, or you know, grab some other people around you, and just make sure she gets somewhere safe or get help, because you may have not really been around a lot of girls while you're in high school here, and it would be really wonderful, and I know your parents would be proud that you would be able to help, you know, someone get home safely. And, you know, sometimes at the dorm, you can ask the security to take her up to the room and not put yourself in any situation where, you know, you might be in an awkward situation. Just make sure that somebody's there to help her.
Okay, what was the, like some colleges have like the blue light system for safety, some have even like beepers now. What do they have in place at Yale?
Yeah, so we had like a very similar blue light system like that. There's like all these different lights around campus that you can always like press the button if you're in an uncomfortable situation. I'm not exactly sure how often those are ever used. I know that we have another thing where it's like you can always, there's an app and you can always call for someone, one of the security at Yale to like give you a ride someplace or walk you home at night if you don't have anybody to like walk you someplace. It's not the safest city by any means. I've definitely found myself like not like in a necessarily mostly uncomfortable situation, but like rushing to get back to my room just because like, I don't know, it's dark out. But it's like you also make sure you know you do have your friends around, but if there is no one there, you can always call the Yale or like, you know, I'm sure your college's police, and they'll always be willing to give you a ride or you know, walk you anywhere you need to, and definitely feel comfortable asking for help whenever you need it.
Anybody else, anything unique or different about you? Chris?
Yeah, just something that I did, I think, at least for me during orientation, I got a presentation from public safety, and like they just put their phone number, so put their phone number in your phone. That's what I would say, like first thing, one of the first things you do when you get there, so then if you just, like you see something, feel unsafe, you just go there, go to your contacts, and then you can just call. You don't have to memorize the number, put the number in your phone. It's one of the first things you do there. And we also use the blue light system also for campus. And so the blue light system is where there are these lights, and then you just push a button, and then the public safety is notified, and they just have to come to the area where the light is. So if you feel unsafe, so if you feel unsafe, the public safety, somebody from public safety will go find you. And at least at Providence, there were a lot of public safety officers around during the day and at night. So it's not like you're walking around and there's like none of them around. There are people patrolling around, and you can, but definitely use that if you feel unsafe.
So some colleges have even gone to the device that you get when you go to a restaurant and you're waiting and they give you this thing and it buzzes when your table's ready. Some colleges have gone to that device where that device that they give you, if you want to take it with you, is active like within 5 or 7 miles of campus. And you know, if you're in trouble or you want to ride, you just activate that, it goes off and they locate you and come get you. So I think the technology has evolved incredibly in terms of safety. I teach a class this summer in Nazareth, and I always walk around there and thinking, they always say to themselves that there's no place that you could be on campus in Nazareth without being able to see a blue light. And I think there's some truth to that. And again, that way, if you don't know that concept, there's a light bulb with blue light and a phone right on it. And like these guys said, if you feel unsafe, you call them, security will be there in a matter of minutes. So there's different versions of that all over the place. Let's shift gears a little bit and just talk about academics. I want to hear the academic difference between high school and college, how well prepared or unprepared you felt. Let's do that. Just talk about what was the biggest difference in terms of the academic load?
We kind of spoke about this earlier, just the amount of like time management that you have. It's a lot of like class and then free time to do whatever you want to do, study, homework, whatever. But I mean, I felt pretty well prepared for the college scene and all my classes. Granted, I wasn't all like the entry level because that's freshman year, but from there I felt like perfectly equipped and ready.
Yeah, I felt like McQuaid did an amazing job for me at least. Not so much like maybe the material that I was learning, but more so just building really good study habits and making sure that I continue those through college, because you do have opportunities where you're like, should I go out tonight, or I have a big test tomorrow, should I stay and study? And you know, it's not always the most important thing to study, like go out and have fun, but if you have these really study habits that McQuaid tries to instill in all of you, then I think you'll do fine no matter where you are.
That's a great point. I think McQuaid is definitely like helping me manage like a tough workload, especially going into engineering for my first year. There's some classes, what we call at Penn State as weed out classes. So classes like chem, for example, which is required for all engineering majors, or potentially even physics, they make them really hard. And so like a good portion of like the class would only get like a C in the class. And like, I definitely know some friends of mine who've like changed their major from that. So I definitely think McQuaid has prepared me. Yeah, just study, and you always have time, but don't always push it to the last minute.
Right. Where was your go-to study place?
First semester, definitely the library. I mean, at the library, unlike a dorm room, you don't have any distractions. I mean, at our library, we have a place called the Stacks, which is like these small, compact floors, and these little desks by a window. You can look outside, and it's just absolutely no noise. It's a great place to study. Second semester, probably, so like in these halls where we probably have like 14 dorms of all freshmen, we have a place called Finley Commons, which is where we ate. They had a great, like, big boardroom, just a great place to study. Also, I highly recommend group study, especially for physics. Go into the library. They have these great, group study rooms where they have like a monitor, you can connect your computer to it, a whiteboard, and you can put a problem on the computer, and 2 or 3 students all on the whiteboard could each do the problem right there on the whiteboard and learn the material together. So definitely take advantage of those resources. And honestly, I probably almost never studied in my dorm. Like, it just wasn't an efficient place for me.
Jude, how about you? Do you have a go-to study place?
There's a library. I honestly didn't really study. I kind of just paid attention in class. To Ryan's point about group study, I would say the opposite, but like you have to kind of figure out how you learn best. So I learned best doing it on my own. I just ended up talking to other people that do group study. It has to do with your material as well, but I just found out I waste a lot of time when I try to do group study. But yeah, if I were to study, I usually went to the library.
I think the point I'm trying to come is usually pretty hard to study in your dorm room. Is that fair to say?
Yeah.
Just wanted to add, sorry, John. Some libraries, you might not know, are open 24 hours, which sounds kind of crazy, but some of my kids really took advantage of that, and they're safe, and they have 24 hours. So also I wanted to address the fact that McQuaid and Mercy really prepare in the realm of essay writing. All of my kids have just been very skilled at writing, whipping out 10-page essays, whereas a lot of their roommates and friends were struggling just to do 3 or 4-page essays. And you'll find that it's a strength that you will have going into your freshman year and throughout. So just know that's a good thing.
How about size of classes? All right, so McQuaid, the largest class you guys were probably in was 25 kids, maybe. How about Ryan, how about you, a big place like Penn State, I think people go, oh, big school, must be tons of kids in the class. What was your biggest?
My biggest class was probably my econ class, microeconomics. I think there was probably roughly 650 people, all in one giant room. Yeah, it was pretty crazy. You walk in and like, the room is so big and like so tall, so like the steps to go down are like really steep, and it's just like, you actually kind of forget that there's so many students there until you turn around and you realize, oh my gosh, there's like 600 and some other students sitting around you. But you kind of get used to it. They have the professor and whatnot, they have big whiteboards and projectors, and it's actually quite easy to see the material and to learn.
After that, so you have 650 kids in a lecture, right? Then they have like smaller recitation groups or?
Yeah, so for physics and chem, we both had recitation, which was only like 20 kids, and a TA would run that. But also for our engineering class, like an intro to engineering design was called. It was more like hands-on project type class, so you'd work in groups. That probably only had like 20 kids, along with my English class, roughly only 15 to 20 kids.
Kim, how about Yale? Biggest class, smallest class?
Yeah, similar to Ryan, I had an intro microeconomics class, and that was pretty large, maybe like 200 or 300 kids. And those classes are fine. Like I definitely still enjoy those. But my smallest class was I had an English seminar the first semester, which was about 8 kids with a professor just sitting at a round table. That was a very cool experience. But I think like the large lectures are also good. Sometimes they choose like really good professors for those because they are teaching a lot more students. My English class had a rather younger professor who was just in grad school. So it really depends on where you're at and what their teaching style is like. I think a very important thing, no matter what the class size is to also go to your professor's office hours, because that's where you really get to know them and have a one-on-one relationship. Even if they are teaching 650 kids, it's nice when they know your name and you can always ask them questions. So.
How about COVID? Talk about how COVID affected classes, dorm living. Any of you guys that took classes online because of COVID, or did you kind of escape all that?
Yale was pretty strict with COVID, unfortunately. I didn't have any online classes until the end of the first semester when we got moved off, and then had to just like a last week. So they've always been a little more stricter than a lot of my other friends at different colleges. It wasn't like anything that was, most things were still happening. Obviously it can be very frustrating when you see your friends not having to wear masks or stuff like that. And by the end, it was very almost back to normal. And I didn't think that, for me at least, it really interrupted my year or how much I enjoyed the year at all. I think the colleges also understand this somewhat and try to make up for it in other ways. I'm sure you guys don't, I don't know, do you guys have to wear masks? I still have to wear masks in class. Other than that, or that was when I finished, other than that, that was the only COVID restriction. And I know a lot of other colleges are a lot better than that, but it really wasn't that bad for that.
Well, advisors or faculty members, did you each have an advisor? Or, how accessible was your advisor or faculty members? They had office hours. Were they not accessible?
Yeah, so Fordham over admitted 800 students, so there was a real deficit of personal attention. I worked at summer camp this summer before I went to my college, and so I missed the, what was that called? The orientation. Well, they had Zoom orientation before the real orientation, just telling you what you need to do. And so I missed that, so I emailed whoever my person was, and they basically said, you need to figure it out on your own. They're sorry, you missed it. So that kind of just really started me off on the wrong foot. When I got there, there was, I was in a business school, so my specific business team was really helpful. But the person who I was assigned really just was probably just overworked, so didn't have the time to really spend.
Not like your fantastic counselors at McQuaid.
Yeah,
Nothing
nothing like that.
Anybody else, advisors, faculty, accessibility?
All of mine were fairly accessible. They all had office hours at some point, and if they didn't, you could just schedule an appointment with them on Zoom. Yeah, for an advisor, sometimes they get booked up maybe 2 or 3 days, but usually within the week you could get an appointment.
Yeah, I just met with my advisor for class scheduling, so scheduling our classes for the next semester, and that was always, they were always accessible, like I just had to call them to make a time, and then like we would go meet in person, and like when I had emailed them, like sometimes like if I didn't get into a class I wanted, and then I was on the wait list, then I would just email them to talk, okay, so like what else we can do, and they would always respond back to your emails. Same with professors, some of them will respond to your emails if you have a question or you want to meet in minutes. So I always thought that was pretty surprising. They're all very accessible. Like if you can just go up to them or email them and be like, hey, I want to meet, can we meet sometime later in the day? And almost always it'll be yes. So definitely professors want to meet with you. So definitely take advantage of that. If you're just like having a question or you're working on a paper and you could want to like talk about it with them, go over that with them, I would definitely encourage that.
What would you guys say to current seniors who, in short order, are going to be making their schedule for a freshman year? Do you have any insight into professors? Am I out of date when I say ratemyprofessor.com? Is that not a thing anymore? Is there any way you can get some inside information?
So the way I went through, I did rate my professor. So I did that. I also knew a couple people that had already been their freshman year, so I talked to them about professors there. But schedule-wise, I'd say it's very important to like understand whether you're a person that likes to spread out your day or like go like high school was and chunk everything together. So personally, I was a very oriented morning person, so I got all my classes done by 12:30 for the whole year. So I was done by 12:30. I think my earliest class was 8 o'clock. And that worked perfectly for me. I had no problems, and I like didn't miss any classes. But I know a couple of my buddies who like had like a class, as Jude was saying, 1 hour in between classes, and they just absolutely hated it because you go to the library, you get down, and you're studying, and you only have like 45 minutes left until you have to go to your next class. So it's very unproductive. Whereas like if you get all your classes chunked together, you go get lunch, do whatever, work out, and then focus on your homework and recycle the next day.
Patty?
Yes, I wanted to add that several of our kids had a situation where they were rescheduling for the next semester, and so you guys can speak about this as well. They had to jump online at a certain time at like 8 a.m., for example, and make sure you had Wi-Fi and all of that, and then they have to try to get into a certain class. And a couple times, I think Joe at Holy Cross, it's a smaller school, smaller classes, he got blocked out. And so, you know, it was frustrating. I think he had to then send a letter to the professor to see if he could get on the wait list and then see if they would allow him to get into that class to complete something. And it's just a little tricky. It can be. I don't know. It depends on the major. But just be aware that you should be on top of that. And if your parents aren't going to help you with that, you really need to do that and be aware of what date and time and all of that.
If I could add to that, it was kind of interesting. So Boston College, everything is like a lottery system. So I unfortunately had like the last pick time for every semester. So every semester I didn't get the classes that I wanted, but there's an add drop period. I'm sure it's like that for every school. Like you really got to utilize that, and if you do utilize it, go to the professor or email them, whatever. You'll most likely get the classes that you need to get.
How about money, finances? Debit card, credit card, what did you spend your money on? What could your parents do to help you? Just talk about money a little bit. Meal plans.
Sure. Mostly money is spent at either getting food that's not on campus, like dining food, or going out at night and spending it on drinks. But it's, yeah, definitely get a debit card, credit card. It's important to understand the principle behind that and spending that. But yeah, honestly, the dining hall food sucks, so you're gonna want to get like Chipotle or whatever, Uber Eats. Like it's you're gonna be paying for that.
Especially for me, I took a lot of late classes. Like for example, my chem lab last semester, or the first semester, went from 6:35 p.m. to 10:35 p.m. And so when you got out at like 10:40, there's no dining hall open. Like of course you could eat right before 6, but 4 hours go by, you're going to be hungry again. At least I was. And you almost have to go downtown and whatnot. So definitely, probably the biggest financial expense is definitely food. Going at a big school like Penn State, East Halls, that was the furthest dorms from downtown. So it was about a 20-25 minute walk. And also it's pretty cold in State College. So, it's when you're in November, December, January, and it's like 20 degrees and blizzard and you're getting out of your 10:30 class, you're probably gonna want to DoorDash, and those charges can definitely add up. So yeah, that's probably gonna be your biggest expense.
Yeah, and you guys have programs on campus where your parents can put money into an account, like certain bucks for something. That happen on your campuses? That question?
As regards to like dining hall or?
Yeah, dining hall or other places in the area for food.
Well, yeah, dining hall is part of tuition, I'm pretty sure, for most colleges, but for other than that, like restaurants around there was no like way to underpay, like cash or credit card or something like that.
We actually had, in addition to our meal plan, called Lion Cash. And since State College is literally like in the middle of nowhere and only exists because of Penn State, literally most of the restaurants down there like Chipotle or whatnot would actually accept Lion Cash. So your parents could put 200, 300, maybe 400 on for the semester.